Jose, it's a pleasure to see you. Jose Morales from Press Forward
Yes,
and
sir.
Todd Glassberg from Compel America. Today, we want to talk about bullying and how it affected us, not only growing up, how we took those experiences and lessons into our current day environment. So I want to start off by asking you, Kat, coming from the MMA world and being such a nice person, but you're a beast and I love it. When you were younger and you competed in wrestling and you were athletic and you didn't fit the atypical norm, were you bullied or picked on?
So my situation with bullying isn't like your standard. I went to school and had anyone there messing on with me or anything like that. Mine was a little different, where it was, my first bully were some people that were, kind of close to me as a home situation. Like, it wasn't, I had to go to school to get it, or I had to go, a bus stop or something. It was essentially right in my home at times. And I remember there was a lot of confusion in that, because there was a certain degree of that made it not safe to feel at home, which definitely made me feel really, really drawn to being part of teams, and I got really into sports because that was a very safe place for me to express myself in movement and athletically, where sometimes when I was at home, I didn't necessarily feel like I could communicate, or I could, fully be myself or say or do the things that I wanted to say, because who knew what the reaction would be. There was a little bit of instability there that as a kid, it's just confusing,
Yeah.
and I do, so it's not the traditional bullying. I wasn't getting pushed around by other kids. I was kind of getting messed with by people that were having their own issues with themselves, and they just passed it on. And I think it makes me empathetic on one hand, and it also, made me want to figure out these ways in my life that, I'm going to turn myself into these things that are going to make people not want to mess with me. So that way I don't have to be mean, or I don't have to, fight or be a bully. Like, at least make people, think
No,
twice.
I agree. For me, that is a very similar theme because I got bullied at home because I had an older brother that he owned me. He owned me. I won't even get into that because I don't want to embarrass him. But we're friendly today, but he owned me. But like you, I played sports. I got bullied at school because I skipped a grade. So I was with kids older than me. So even though I was big, I was physically and mentally immature. I wasn't strong. I tried to play sports. I was the focus of the grunt, so to speak, right? The hazing.
Mm-hmm.
That all changed. And so I quit football and went into wrestling. That's why I asked you, because it was a team sport, but it was a singular thing. And for me, it was overcoming that. It was only on me to survive. So when I got angry because I was getting beat, it still gave me the feeling of being bullied, right? It was still someone oppressing me. And when I was able to overcome that, which happened by 11th grade, that's when I went back to football. Mm-hmm. And I hit my growth spurt and I became 50 pounds heavier over a year, and no one ever bullied me again. As you said, I became that force. I can't say, so we talked about, and Jose, this is something for you maybe to add in on. We've always talked about Compel focuses on stopping the bully, right? Helping the bully understand why they're bullying. Part of that and why I got involved was because when I first figured out that I can now do something, I took it to the extreme. Like, you're not going to bother me, right? I'm just going to oppress you, because it was my defense mechanism from being bullied. So it took a while for me to understand that the real strength comes from being empathetic. That was a very good point of view. From taking a second and understanding the other person's feelings from their perspective. I think once I learned that in life, understanding how someone else felt about something and what is causing them to react that way to me, and not taking ownership that it was me, I felt better. Now, Jose, do you find that when you go to schools? I'm going to come back to you, Kat, but when you go to schools and you talk to kids, do you find that happening?
In my area, yeah. What's going on now is I got a lot of kids reaching out to me because the COVID is taking place. So now that makes it even worse. And like you were saying, Kat, I lived the same similarity in my house. Was everywhere. It's in my house, and I was getting it in school. I was getting anywhere. And so fast forward with what you're saying, is kids are now. You imagine those kids like when we were kids and we were getting abused in a lot of ways at home. We were still able to go to school. That was our scapegoat, regardless whether the teacher was horrible or we had kids that I could deal with that, than had to get an ass with every time at home with my mother, or had to deal with the drugs abuse or the depression or the suicide that was taking place in my house. Now kids are even getting more worse for the fact that they have nowhere to run. They isolated. So now that makes it even worse, because here they are, a lot of them getting bullied online, and they can walk away if they want, but now they don't have really nothing to do. These guys have nothing to do, and they don't know what's going to happen in the next minute. So these kids are reaching out to me saying that, I don't know, Mr. Morales, what I'm going to do. I have this going on. My mother's doing this, or my father's doing this. I had one not too long ago where I started reaching out to Mike and sending this message to him to try to get Compel involved, because this girl out of nowhere noticed that I was following Mark Merrill, the wrestler. And so we kind of talk, me and Mark Merrill kind of talk once in a while. And I guess she noticed that we follow each other. So she started reaching out to me because of the contents that I was putting on the Instagram. And that day, she was actually talking about committing suicide. And because Mark Merrill wrote something in regards to how he's figuring out how to help this individual, but he didn't say who it was. So I interjected and put my 2 cents in it. And I told him what needs to be taking place. Being that I lived that life, I can say what I would like to hear and what I'd like to know. And trying to kind of reverse that. And so it ended up working out to my benefit that once I reached out to this person, she really started like really now digging me back and forth. And she like, thank you for saying these things and so on. And I was telling her, at the end of the day, I'm not saying this to fluff it up. I'm not here to try to make, because I'm here to be a servant. That I'm big on that. I'm here to be a servant, not to try to take. I'm a giver. So I love the thought of being able to help someone and be able to figure out what I can do to get you in a place where you need to be at and get you in the track. And because of this, and once I directed that attention, I kept going back and forth, and end up in good terms, because it was like a long day, man. But I didn't want to let go for the fact that I would have felt guilty if I know that I couldn't do something, and all I'm just gonna tell her, "Oh, here's a 800 number, and call me later."
Right.
Like, how does that work? It doesn't work. I don't want to. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just like saying I'm patting your back. All right, yeah, I do care, but then it's more like a publicity stunt, and I'm not doing that. I'm not here for publicity, And so, and to your saying that you have kids in a lot of degrees that they're going through so much, and they just don't know how to handle. And then the problem is that then you have a lot of parents or doctors or whoever, they fast to give me, here's a prescription here. Here's something for you to calm down. When that's
we like quick solutions, unfortunately, nowadays. There's really not a lot of, what's the right word? It's really become very disposable, right? We want to classify something. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm not even
put a title to everything.
Medicine or anything. Whatever affliction is going on in this world, we label it. We put it in a cubby. We give it a fix, and we want to move on. And to tell you the truth, this has been a very good journey, at least for me. And I'm going to come back to you, Kat, because I have a different question. But do you find that extra introspection, by the way, that we all have to have, is kind of the key of helping somebody help themselves? Look, you could stop we could all stop the physical part of bullying, right? We identify it, we call the person on it, and we support the person and the situation, whether it's the bully or the victim.
Mm-hmm.
We got to sit down and educate them both. But I think it's getting people to think about inside themselves, because it's a daily struggle. I don't care how, no one's that put together that they go home through every single day and it's perfect for them, unless they're shallow. I mean, and we have a whole society full of that. That's why we're compartmentalizing and we don't want to deal with it. We can push it by. So do you find, Kat, in your daily life, especially you work with a lot of athletes, right? And most people think that mixed martial arts and wrestling and all that, they think it's a violent sport, but it's really a thinking, constructive, planning approach to sport. Violence is part of it, right? But it's not. You're not violent. If you're violent without thought, you will not succeed. Your anger and aggression will shut down, and you won't think to make a plan. So there's no structure. So understanding your empathy and the type of people that are drawn to sports that take a high degree of physical and mental training, do you find that they were bullied, or this is their outlet for either they bullied or they were the bully? You know, the bully victim?
Yeah. So one thing that I would say is common, and it's like not funny, but it's funny because I feel like we can all agree that there's a story or some form of pain management that happened that felt very out of control at some point. So whether you were, your first bully was your parents, or the gaslighting that comes from somebody messing with you, even though it doesn't have to come from physical force.
That's a very good word, by the way, gaslighting.
Yeah, the confusion, the manipulation, like making you doubt yourself, putting you in bad positions and things like that. Those are all things that it's another form of bullying that is more psychological, and I feel like can cause just as much damage, if not more, than someone actually putting their hands on you.
Right.
And, those are all learned behaviors as well. So someone practicing treating you that way, talking to you that way, acting that way towards you, that does its damage on your adrenaline and, the safety and the security of your life just walking around. So, I mean, again, it comes in all forms, and you have, what I see in my sport and what I see in a lot of people that do my sport is kind of control management, where think of all of the opportunities in your life or situations in your life where, there was these problems that you were given that you couldn't solve because you didn't fully understand them. They were coming at you from all angles, and there was zero control in it. You had no choice in where you lived. You had no choice in how you were being treated at home or at school. You still had to go to class. You still had to go to the dinner table. Like, you still had to sleep in that bed. And their losses included, you may have lost a parent, you may have seen violence, you may have been the victim of violence. Like, it doesn't matter. Whatever, hell is hot for everybody and whatever their experience is. So I think that there sometimes feels like a lack of control, which then turns around into being something where they want to choose their control. They want to choose the fight that they get in. They want to choose that stress. They want to choose how they get their pain and how they deliver pain. And, that outlet that comes with it as well in this sport. And I haven't really met anybody in this sport that comes from the perfect white picket fence house that, never had a struggle in their life, that, life was peaches and cream. I really haven't. And maybe it is out there, but I don't know, because I can't relate.
Number. No, it is a small number. I thank you. That is a great observation. I'm going to tell you an interesting story. I think last time we spoke, Jose.
Yeah.
I don't know if I had mentioned it, and I don't know if I even told you, Kat, since we know each other from before. There was a kid in 9th grade that bullied me every single day. And my dad said, "You're going to have to stick up for yourself." I said, "He's going to beat me up." And the funny thing is, the little dog is. Anyway,
All right, for a minute, I'm like looking like where he at.
He was looking for something to throw. Did you see that? He's like, where am I going to throw this dog?
That's right. I was going to bully him. This guy bullied me every single day. And I did stand up for him, but he still continued. And the interesting thing is, I got in touch with him on Facebook about 5 months ago. Do you know that he didn't even remember me?
Wow.
I'm 54 years old. You're talking something that happened 40 years ago, and it still was in my mind. And to him, it wasn't even a blip. He didn't even know who I was. Because I kind of remember you. But he spent every day of a whole school year tormented.
That saying for me is like more like you weren't the only victim.
Right.
For him to say, well, I kind of remember, but he really doesn't. You weren't the only one. He was actually doing the same nonsense to a whole bunch of other kids. And God only knows.
Can I ask for both of you, like, when you find out or seemingly somehow understand that for lack of a better word, that like you were insignificant to them enough that they don't remember, but you remember, is that relieving to you, or is that hurtful? Like when you find out that they don't remember you, like how does that actually feel?
Great question. You want to know something? For me, it was kind of relieving, and I'll tell you why. It didn't get rid of the feelings I had all this time, but it made me think about, wow, I carried that experience with me, and it's probably what made me want to go help other people from being bullied. I will not allow anybody to be bullied. I'm staunch. I stand right up. However, I realized that I took it too personal. I didn't have the understanding of where he was coming from.
Right.
You know, I grew up in Brooklyn.
That's probably the platform that actually put you where you at. You know, that was your foundation. And it's more like saying, you don't remember, but I still want to thank you.
We were two poor kids from Brooklyn, from different races and different socioeconomic backgrounds. And he looked at me like I was different. And I looked at him that he was just a bully. I didn't even look at him, he was different. I didn't even think about him. I just wanted to know where he was so I could walk the other way. However, looking back now, I probably couldn't put myself in his situation to understand how he was feeling. So, yes, I felt relieved, to answer your question, only because I have the understanding now, and it made me feel better when I help somebody.
And what about you, Kat? Have you ever been through the same experience, though? Like, Kat, have you gone through anything like that yourself?
No, she would just
degree. I'm saying,
I don't think I've ever.
Because I know you said about family, home. But now, as far as for family, how does that work for you, though? Especially if you see them, and if you don't. Like, I will see my family, and I still feel like want to rip their head off. But at the end of the day, I know I'm a bigger person now. I'm a better person now, and I don't hold grudges, because the fact that that's a whole lot of weight.
But I'm a lot more direct because of it, though. Like, if I have something to say, I don't generally hold it back. I try to temper the way I deliver it. I'm not always successful. I'm not talking about being loud, but I definitely I don't let too much slip by anymore when I feel I'm being bullied.
Yeah, because that's why I was asking Kat, because
I want to be more
interpretation is different. Being at home, that's got to be a lot different, because I had to deal with that kind of stuff sometimes.
I think I have secretly always wanted like acknowledgement and like an apology, but also know that in order to forgive, like it can't be about their apology. It has to be me letting it go for my own health. Okay. You know, otherwise that resentment, like like if you're in that present resentment all of the time, like you're not actually living. Like you're living in this bubble of how you feel about something instead of what's actually happening in your life. And so it's like on you to let it go. But at the same time, it's tricky because you were wronged and you felt wronged, and you would like someone to admit or acknowledge that kind of thing affected you in a way that like changed your day, many days, even years, you know, that you can't necessarily repair. So for me, and then on the other hand, exactly like you're saying, there's things to be grateful for. Like, yeah, there was a lot of abuse. There was a lot of, you know, things that were very emotional that at the time were completely unfair, you know, completely unfair, something that a kid should never have to deal with. But, and you know, people have the cliche, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's like, man, I didn't need to be stronger as a kid. I needed to be safe.
I needed a hug.
Like I don't need a 6-pack at 12. You know what I mean? Like I need to be comfortable, and I need to know that my world isn't a rug that's going to get pulled out from under me at all times, you know? And so on one hand, at my age and what I am now and what I do now, I get to look at my world and be like, damn, I'm so fucking tough. And like, look at what I can get through. Look at the things that I know how to do. Look at the things I know I don't know how to do. All of that came from me having to figure this stuff out on my own, even though I should never have had to be figuring it out on my own. So on one hand, I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for sports and being as good as I am at sports, because that's where I put my focus on when I could control nothing in my life. And so I'm an incredible athlete, and I'm very talented because that's where I could put it. That's how I funneled it.
You put your energy on that, which is great.
Right. But at the same time, it's like sad that that's
now what you did. You have a son?
I do. I have a 14-year-old boy.
Okay. Now, how does what you went through affect your upbringing with him? Like, what are you doing, or what is he seeing that is it similar to what you went through in a way, the way he catches things? I mean, you know, some kids you can find out that they're very observant like you, or they're observant like the other party. So
I know. Okay, so I realize we're all a product of our upbringing or our environments, current and past, you know. And I definitely am very conscientious of the things that I've been through and the reactions that I have witnessed, because that's exactly where bullying comes from. Is like, do you take it and you pass it on, or do you take it and it stops with you? And so there's these moments I've definitely been so mad and like, you know, just a parent that's like, things go wrong and your buttons get pushed, and it's like, there's options here. How would some people in my life have dealt with this situation? Was to get very aggressive and to get intimidating and to get whatever. I can choose to be that way. And I know I've seen that, and I know that's in me because I've learned it. I've walked through it. Or it can stop there with me, and I can go a different route where maybe I walk away and take a breath, and then we come back and we talk about it, and not recreate the same look in his eye that I know I was looking at my parents or my other family members with, or people in my life that, you know, reacted out of their emotions versus giving it a second for anyone to get their head cool, you know. And it definitely impacts me as a parent. It impacts how I look at every single kid, because all these kids, they're pure. They aren't born feeling the way we feel as adults. Like, that's all about what they've been through and what they resonate with and how they pick it up. And so I look at them and I'm like, man, you're light. And I want to do what I can to protect their light as long as possible, because it's a hard world out there.
I'm going to tell you a very honest story to add on to that. And Kat, thank you very much. It's real. It's sincere. My daughter turned 24 the other day, and she came over for dinner, and we're sitting down during dinner, and she tells the famous story that she was getting picked on in kindergarten by a boy. And she kept going to the teacher every day, and the teacher was ignoring it. So I finally, because I was bullied, remember I told you that whole beautiful story. I said to my daughter, I said, the next time the boy bullies you, punch him in the face. 5-year-old. 5-year-old. Punch him in the face. And keep punching him until he falls down and bleeds. Because in my mind, I was so PTSD from being bullied. that I wanted my daughter to put a stop to it immediately because she tried the teacher route and nothing got better.
Mm-hmm.
So my daughter punched the boy in the face.
Mm-hmm.
And the teacher called us up to school. And I tell you, as a dad, I said, yes, I told her that. 100%. I had to go to you. I expected you to handle it. And I just wanted her to be able to stand up for herself. Now, I could have handled it much differently. Looking back now, it's comical to me. And
Right.
it's shocking that I would react that way, right?
That's the thing. You learn from what you do. I mean, like, no one is perfect. As long as you know what when you went through that issue, that you're not going to carry the same thing again.
Now, I'm going to take it 15 years later. So 15 years later, my son is being bullied. And I have the conversation with my son. I'm like, well, you can stick up for yourself, just like my father had with me, right? And he's like, oh, I'm going to get in trouble. And I thought about it all night long. And I went to football practice with him the next day. And I said, when that boy picks on you, and he was picking on him because of some family stuff, because of me. I said, just point to him and say, there's my dad if you have something to say. I just sat in the stands. I didn't say a word. And that immediately shut down that aggression from that kid and his bullying. You know, he just cursed my son out and walked away. But he didn't bully him again. And it wasn't my son's problem to hold. You follow? Mm-hmm. The kids were being mean about me, not about him.
Which is sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I was lucky that I handled it that way. But let me tell you something. I had to really think about that. But I will be honest with you. As you say, Kat, it's a evolution because today I really try never to get angry. I mean, I get angry. I'm a human being. But I'm not explosive. I try really not to raise my voice. It takes a very, very long time for me to be out of my character. I'd rather just chill. But I will say that my reaction at that point, and I was, especially with my kids, if they were bullied after I was bullied, I would confront the kid, the parent. I wouldn't care. You know, I'm telling you, you were talking about online bullying before, Jose.
Yeah.
My daughter was getting bullied on her phone. I picked up the phone and called the kid and said, if you keep attacking my daughter electronically, I'm going to come over there and it's not going to be nice. And you can go tell mommy and daddy that I just called you. I mean, but that's the part, you know, I'm talking, I was 20 years ago, but the progression.
Yeah, a whole different ball game then. Yeah.
The world is different.
We're the same age, which is crazy. So, I mean, and I know how that is.
I'm different, but we want to protect our children. We don't want to repeat the same behavior. You know, I see kids bullying now, and they don't even realize that they're bullying. Maybe they're bigger, just naturally bigger than the other kids, so they're dominant. But they don't realize that their dominance is in a bullying. Look, I'm not saying everyone shouldn't get a trophy, and sometimes people's feelings should be, you know, can get hurt. However, we don't have to be mean to each other. We don't even have to like each other. We have to respect each other. There's a difference. Yeah. It's another human being who has a different talent and a different emotional skill set, and we should respect that. And if it doesn't coexist in our world, then we should let it go.
Yeah.
And I think respect is a little loose too, because you don't necessarily have to respect somebody, but you do have to coexist. And you have to try to not be upsetting, and you have to try to behave. And if that can be the golden rule, we can go. Even the golden rule is a loose one. I mean, you want to get treated how you treated me, you better, you know, we better make sure that math adds up.
You know what the problem is to that when you have, I'm big with that the same way, but the respect really comes if that person doesn't respect themselves. This is why they don't have respect for nobody else. You know what I'm saying? So they carry on that way because he's saying, you know, you got to respect me. I used to say that to my kids. I don't care if you like me or not, but you got to respect me.
Well, respect is this. I tell you.
But then there's a different respect of how it is now in the future with kids nowadays. They don't understand how valued that is.
You don't have to go out of your way, though, and say, hello, Mr. Glassberg. You just could, if you don't like me, just ignore me. Like I don't exist. Unless we're interacting and we have to interact, Otherwise, if we don't have to interact, I believe everybody can live their own life as long as it doesn't affect my life.
Not the case. That's the sad part. That's that. Right. We all know that's not the case. We would like to think that we can all live like that. You know, we can all sit here and think, all right, we're gonna do this and do that. But at some degree, if it's not taught at home, the kids are lost. You know what I'm saying?
I have an interesting perspective.
It starts with the parents or with the teacher. That's another issue also what you brought up, that when your daughter was going to the teacher and the teacher wouldn't do nothing. You know,
she probably didn't even register in her mind about the parent having some PTSD moment about what happened when he was younger, right? Or she was younger. I have an interesting question for both of you, a scenario. And it's very appropriate in today's world, whether it's bullying, whether it's religious, race, no matter what, whatever it is, sexism, whatever you want, whatever topic. Go back to the Bible, right? And if we look at the Bible, how any person takes religion in any depth, okay? This is not a Bible thumping scenario. But if you look at the stories about the Bible, right? From the beginning, this earth was created. There's always been conflict of someone taking advantage of someone else.
From day one.
Right? From day one. And it's been perpetuated throughout history. We can go from the biblical times to the Roman Empire, to the Greek Empire, to Genghis Khan, to the kings, the czars. It's always been one aspect oppressing something else. It's always been there. Now, it's great nowadays that we have the intellectual capacity and the experience to talk about it. But do you feel over time that it will get better because we can talk about it?
No.
Or has it really changed?
I think some of that is mammalistic, right? Like you look at a wolf pack or a lion pride, or I don't know if that's tigers or lions pride, whatever. Okay, but you look at mammals and there's a hierarchy, right? There's the alpha, and then there are the hunters, the gatherers. There's the ones that protect the babies and whatever. So I do think there is a natural mammalistic desire for competition. In all of us, you know what I mean? But then
it's never going away.
No, but then you add gigantic populations and different cultures and continents, and everyone's got to figure out this hierarchy with the access that they have. These days, there's this access of people being able to say and do whatever they want with there being no filter, no consequence. Right. I mean, if it's 20 years ago on a schoolyard, yeah, you're going to eventually run into the kid that you should never have picked on. And eventually people are going to realize, okay, don't mess with him. He'll swing on you, but maybe mess with those other kids because they'll scare easy. And this could not even be the kid that's running the show. Usually the true alpha of the room doesn't need to act like that. It's somebody that's
you don't even see
that they think of a collective thing for the whole group of people. The ones that are out there being destructive, they're not leaders. They're not out there turning like good into better. They're trying to find their position because they don't feel good in where they probably feel they actually are. Right. So I think there's a certain degree of that where it'd be hard for it to improve because, I mean, one of the things I think is crazy is I'll get on my social media, I'll post some things, and it's not little kids that are on there talking all the shit. It's not. It's like grown ass adults that have jobs and families and whatever.
A bunch of giant babies.
Yeah, and it's their opportunity to be a complete loose cannon, and they don't even care the example they're setting. They don't care what their descendants will speak of them. What is the best thing that my dad did? Well, this one time he got George St. Pierre to react to him by saying something super nasty. Like that's your legacy. That's the best thing you did. And people are fine with that. You know what I mean? Because they threw a rock in a lake and the lake made ripples. And that's the impact they're trying to make because it's an impact period. You know? And that's where things get tricky is because I think people they're not looking for the value in their interactions with life. They're looking for their own outlets and passing on their troubles, passing on their pain, putting things on the people to make them join them in whatever level of emotion or fairness they feel they're experiencing in their life.
So I think that's where it comes down to all of our desires, right? Because we're sitting here in all in agreement, and we would feel that it's insurmountable to overcome these aspects of innate society. And I gotta believe, though, at least I hope, and this is what drives me, even if we can help one person, affect one person's life, who will affect, you never know who you're affecting, though, right? You never know who that next person is. I used to be, it's not bullying, but I used to be big, like 80, 100 pounds bigger. And I went on this whole diet, and my best friends, man, were picking on me. I didn't understand. When I was big and heavy and unhealthy, I was a great, funny guy. And then as I was getting fit and starting to look, in shape and have my act together, the envy and the jealousy, and you were talking about hierarchy, right? And I was never, thank God, because I was always big as a kid. I told you I was chubby. Then I got muscular, in athletics, but I was big. And I got bullied, so I never used my physique as my calling card. I used my personality, right? I wanted to run from the bullies. It would be funny, so they would leave me alone. Or, be at least cool. I was the king of the nerds. It's the only way to put it. If you want to classify, we're using today's terminology, right? I was the king of the nerds. I skipped a grade. I was an athlete. I wasn't supposed to be there. So when I lost all that weight, I still had my personality. My feelings got hurt. Here I should be sitting on top of the world. I'm healthy. I went away from type 2 diabetes, but I got attacked for being in shape. That's where our society is, right? Totally attacked.
It happens all the time. It happens like if you're going to take care of yourself, that's like even for a woman. And if a woman finds that, you know what, I'm healthy, I got to take care of myself, automatically a guy will think, who's the dude? It's not, who's the dude?
Even the guy taking care of himself, who's your woman? Who are you doing it for?
But it's the truth. In society now, you got a lot of men that are idiots like that. They were like, "Oh, who's the guy?" Rather than saying that the woman had enough of how she is, and now she's feeling like she has to do a turning point. That's for anything in life.
You talk about social media, right? So I make a post. I was doing it every day. My 365 days of Superman. And everyone's like, "Oh, I'm so sick of that." And I'm like, instead of worrying about the hashtag, why don't you read what I'm writing? At the end of the day, whatever I write is something I'm actually, and this goes with bullying. I tell people, you have to have an identity, right, Kat? You post what you feel, how you feel at that moment. You like what you like, and that's your path.
Right.
Same thing with you, Jose. So when I post a thought or a feeling or something that came across, it might not be the outer shell that I'm living in my life, but it's a thought that crossed my mind, whether through someone I'm helping or coaching or through my own personal feelings at that moment. And I want it almost like I view social media as my diary, so that when I'm dead and people who care about you go back and read it, they'll know what I thought that day.
Right.
I'm going to leave you both with a thought. I actually saw a really good movie last week that I've never saw before. It was Al Pacino, Christopher Walken, and Alan Arkin. I want to say it was Stand Up Guys might have been the name of the movie. Al Pacino had a greatest line in that movie, and it stuck with me. And Kat, we've talked about things like this before, where it's like an epiphany of a life saying.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there and I'm watching the movie, and this was the statement, and it goes to anybody trying to make a change. Their friend died. The character Alan Arkin died, and Al Pacino says, today we're here to bury our friend for the first time. In life, we have two deaths. The first death is our physical death, when we're no longer on this earth. The second death is when the last person who knew us or felt the effects of our lives speaks our name for the last time. So unbeknownst to me, that is really how I try to live my life. I want to leave a mark. It doesn't have to be, I don't want to be look, I want to live comfortably, but I don't have to be a bazillionaire. I want to touch somebody's soul. I want to make a difference. I want to make a life. Otherwise, what is the sense? We would just be useless eaters if we all walked through a shallow life. We would just eat and be done. So I applaud you, Kat, because I think you're an amazing person.
Yeah.
I've gotten to know you, and I think that you've taken into life's challenges and making positive impacts on your life. And you're not bitter, you're actually kind, and I'm impressed by you. And Jose, I feel a kindred spirit with you as well, because you've had the same hard upbringing. We've all had hard upbringings, but we don't wear it on our sleeve, and we push forward and push through.
Press forward, brother. You got to press forward.
Press forward. That's the whole thing. That is my superpower. When everyone asks me, what is my superpower? Perseverance. Same thing in your sport. You may be more athletically inclined. You may be more intelligent than I. You may have more money than me. You will not outlast me. I will not ever allow that to happen. But it's me versus me. I'm not worried if you're going to quit. I'm worried when I'm never quitting. And I really applaud you both. And I thank you so much for your personal thoughts.
Back at you, Todd.
This time. And I'm sure we'll talk again.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow, come on, Kat. Give that last. My buddy. Have a wonderful evening. And thank you all so much for your time. And we'll speak to you soon.
All right, good to talk to you, gentlemen.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.